Hello and welcome to the Never Ending 80s podcast. I am your host, J.C.Hollywood, and my guest today is one of Australia's hardest working musicians. Many of you know of him already, but for those that don't, you have definitely heard his stuff, whether it be in a TV show, in a jingle for a commercial, or playing guitar for some of your favourite artists. He started work in the 80s, he has been employed constantly ever since in the music industry, and he's recently found a new life on Twitch. I can't wait to jump into my conversation with him. Please sit back and enjoy my conversation with Peter Northcote. Peter Northcote, welcome to the Never Ending 80s podcast.
Oh, Jason, thanks for having me, man.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Why would you want to have me on your 80s podcast? That's what I want to know. I mean, you can have me on the 60s or the 70s podcast.
Well, listen, because you started. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think it would be no exaggeration to say that you are the most prolific and hardworking session musician in Australia, if not the world. And that began in the 80s, if I am not mistaken.
Nah, mate, I'm just inexpensive. That's why I just get booked a lot because I'm cheap. That's all it is.
Fair enough. That's what I was missing.
Look, I was born in 1960, so when 1980 became 1980, I was 20 years old. So it's just the career was just happening. So
right.
It was an amazing time.
Yeah, I was reading that. The advice that you were given when you started was, you'll probably get 2 to 3 years out of session work, and we're getting on 4 decades almost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, session work isn't really around anymore like it used to be. I read something the other day of, a session musician giving advice, and he's a great player, great guitarist and everything, but it's not a session musician anymore. A session musician is going to a recording session,
Yeah.
And I was doing 5, sometimes 10 a day, and now it's a gig. So it's not a session as such. It's a gig,
Yeah.
But no, those days of doing all those sessions, and what I was doing was radio and TV commercials, playing on people's albums, demos, you name it, documentaries, movies, all that sort of stuff. So there was lots and lots of work, and it really started in the 80s for me.
Yeah. So, let's explain for our listeners. I don't have a really a great grasp on what our demographic is like, so they may not even understand what a session musician does. Talk us through, essentially what you do as a session musician, particularly when you were starting out in the 80s.
Okay, so really what I was doing when I started out in the, I started gigging when I was 15. I was doing stuff, doing weddings and all that, club gigs and all that sort of stuff. And they got me in because I could play and I could read and I could do all that sort of stuff. And so they eventually I started doing in like gigs and cover band gigs like we all do now. But It gave me a really good, repertoire of different styles, like from playing clubs and then playing in cover bands. You're playing pop to jazz to funk to punk to you name it. And then I was working with a guy called Clive Harrison, who is an amazing bass player, an amazing teacher at in all the music universities now. But he got me in a band, and then he was doing all the bass sessions in those days. He was playing on Little River Band and Richard Clapton and all that sort of stuff. And he said, you'd be really good for this guy called Les Gock, who was the guitarist from Hush in the 70s. Right. And Les had started writing jingles. And so I ended up doing all his stuff, probably around about mid-80s, where I would walk into a studio and I would take all my guitars and my amplifiers and then set up, and then they'd say, all right, here's a chart, and it's going to be a song in the style of Madonna, and we want you to play what Madonna would play. And that so then I would go to the next studio and it'd be like, okay, here's a song by, blah, blah, blah. It's going to sound a little bit like AC/DC. Can you make it sound like AC/DC? So I went out and bought all the guitars and all this sort of equipment so that I could keep working. Like you said, I got the advice in the beginning saying, you will probably get 2 to 4 good years out of being a session musician. I went, bugger that. I want to keep doing this. That's what I love. I love playing guitar. I'm not going to stop it in 4 years.
Yeah.
So a session musician basically is somebody that goes into a studio and records music. You'll hear it on the radio, you'll hear it on the TV, you'll hear it behind movies, you'll hear it on people's albums, all that sort of stuff. And I was kind of like, back in those days, there were a couple of guys doing it, but I kind of kept doing it and eventually became, I guess, the A grader sort of, I hate to put labels on myself, Jason, because, I reckon I'm still pretty shit, right? I'm just kind of keeping up the facade and I'm keeping up the illusion so that people don't, realize how bad I actually am.
I don't think you need to put the labels on yourself. I think the labels have stuck. They've been put on you and they found their way there.
It's great. I mean, it's a really great thing. And I guess as I was elaborating before, was that being able to play in all the 80s cover bands gave me a really, really good background and a lot of information for being able to play on any sort of style of music.
Yeah. And it's not, so you started out with guitar and obviously you are best known for your guitar. You're one of the premier guitarists.
No, cheapest. Remember, I'm one of the cheapest.
Yeah, sorry. My dictionary just the synonyms. Yeah, it just says cheap, prolific. But you also play a lot of your other instruments in your with the session work that you're doing now. You pretty much do all of the instruments. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I fake them, but that's what I do is I fake different styles and things. Yeah, well, I play bass, which is obvious. I've got, I do play a bit of drums, but that's a really hard instrument. I mean, it's my desire to be able to play well, but it's a really hard instrument, and I don't get it yet. The independence. Right. But yeah, I got to do everything myself.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Yeah, I did. I remember reading an article once that was talking about how guitarists' brains are actually wired differently. Like they did some scans of brains. They were doing experiments and seeing how the brains fired to different stimuli, and guitarists' brains just fire differently.
Right?
And I imagine drummers fire even more differently because
that's right. That's right. Well, can you imagine what a singer's like?
Singer's brains just flatline.
Call the doctor quick.
They're very straightforward. Now, you've obviously you adapt yourself constantly to the environment you find yourself in. And I was saying before we came on, your backdrop there it puts mine to shame. So it's which is because you've gotten into Twitch. I understand you've actually made quite an impact on Twitch, which for a lot of people they think Twitch is simply a video game streaming platform, but it's certainly diversified recently. How did you fall into Twitch?
Well, and COVID last year, I all the gigs just dominoed out, bang, 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 one after another in a week. And so I went, well, I'm not going to sit around and do nothing, I've closed everything down. I've got to play. I mean, I just got to play. I have to play.
Yeah.
Here I am at 61 years old, and I feel like I'm just beginning. I just got to do it. So I started doing what I call the ISO duos, where I just played a backing track and sent it to Virginia Lilly, and she sang on it on a video on her phone, and then sent it back to me, and then I mixed it up and then put the two videos together, and then I got more and more elaborate.
Right.
And each time I do it, and I ended up doing one a day for over 2 months, or over a month and a half. So I think I did 30, 35, 40 of them. And they were just a thing that happened every day. We were getting, up to 500,000 views on these videos.
Right.
And probably, 10 to 20,000 overnight. So they were really successful because, it was the beginning of COVID. So everybody's busting for entertainment.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, well, when the restrictions lifted, I thought, I'm just going to see if I can put a band in this room. And I'll show you the room so that you get an idea of how big it is. It looks really big, but it's not. Right. So that's it. It's a second bedroom in my apartment block in the city. Right. And so when I first started doing it, over there was a treadmill that never got used, so the half the room was gone anyway, and so what happened was I thought I reckon I could get a band in here because I play direct. I have the Axe play direct. If a bass player can go direct, and if I get electric drum kit, I can put a microphone in it, and I know how to mix because I've always owned a studio. So I thought maybe if I get some guys in. So what we did was every Thursday night we had a live gig in here, and we were making money off donations, enough for me to be able to pay the guys because there was no work. Remember that time before JobKeeper, there was that all your gigs have gone and we've got no money for you for another couple of months.
Yeah.
So there was no money. And a lot of these guys live week to week, you know.
Oh yeah.
And barely have a bank account if you're a musician, you know. So it was a really good thing to do, and they were really successful, and we were getting donations from people. And I thought, well, there's got to be, Facebook then became saturated. Like, it's saturated. It is. Entertainment is saturated in general. But I had a look at this thing called Twitch, and I was just checking it all out and seeing people kind of making money from it and doing really good stuff. And I thought, this is perfect. And it was a slow beginning. I could tell it was going to take a while. Right. And it wasn't so much transferring the people from Facebook over to Twitch. It was more about developing a relationship with the people on Twitch.
Right.
And that's what's been happening, because people that are on Facebook don't really care for Twitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't really advertise it on Facebook anyway, because they're opposition. They don't like Twitch at all. So even if you put a post up, they're not going to share that at all.
Yeah.
So I started doing Twitch, and it's been the most amazing thing. We have an amazing community. They even called themselves the Twitch Coats, and I've got merch now. You know, with my channel 1111 with the Twitch Coats. I've got more merch. It's been incredible. So, and I'm making enough money to survive through this time, and it's all through subscription, and people like what I do. And what I do is I have lots of music, lots of guitar playing. I sing a bit, but you don't really want to hear me sing, Jason. It's more like it's like I've licked the road on the way to the gig, and all the gravel has gone into my throat.
I know that's not true.
I get through it, but I'm not a great. So actually, doing this has actually made me a better singer.
You're right.
But I have a quiz, and I've got my best mate Tanty, who many people in the Australian industry know who she is. Yes. She's a bit of a legend because she goes to every gig and she knows everybody. Yeah. And she gets on with me, and she's kind of been my right hand. She's my Bert Newton. I'm her Don Lane. So she helps organise the quiz. We do a quiz every night. We do 2 quizzes. Right. And it's not just music. We have games, and it's pretty interesting. You have great conversations, and the people just love it, and they contribute to it. And it's become an amazing platform for me, and to the point where now I'm speaking with somebody about doing a TV show, right? Which won't be a TV show as such, but it'll be an online show event that can be segmented off bits to be sold to some of the peripherals of the channels. So we'll see what's happening with that, but it's become a really good thing. So that's where I'm at now, and some people are ringing me up to do gigs. So I'm kind of going, it's not really enough. I want to do just yet, I can do it here, and I can smell,
Yeah. Once you hit that sweet spot, why would you go out if you don't need to?
Well, you're right, but I do miss playing live. Don't get me wrong. I love just playing live, and I do have a regular Thursday night down at the Rambling Rascal in the city here, and that starts again in December the 9th. So we're back at that. But it's great. And the people. I saw somebody the other day saying, "Oh, I went and did a gig the other night, and it was weird. My fingers weren't working." I went, "Man, I've been doing 4 gigs a week for the last 6 months, the last 2 years." So I'm fired up, and I feel good in the fingers and all that sort of stuff. So again, it's like, I love this. I love just playing. As I say, 61. I feel like I'm just beginning. I want to go.
Yeah.
So it's been an amazing time in many ways, financially and musically, because I'm playing with, I'm playing the backing tracks, and I'm making my own, and I'm also playing the things like the Stones. I'm playing to their backing tracks and stuff. So it's really cool. I'm playing with all these amazing bands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Now we'll get
Yeah.
into the categories in just a moment, but before we do, I do want to wander back to the '80s with you, because it wasn't long before you were playing with a lot of these artists that you had been covering in your cover band work, and it's probably easier to list the artists that you didn't perform with, given the breadth and width of artists that you would tour with and stuff like that. Do you have any favorites or any stories from the road that you can share?
Oh, I've only got bad ones, Jason. Oh, you'd hate them. You'd hate. I mean, the audience. I don't know if they want to hear them.
Oh,
I mean,
I think
you think I can?
yeah.
What can I? What can I tell? Look, I have. They were all really interesting. The bands that I played with were great. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that I was always disappointed. And I don't mean this, and like I wasn't really disappointed. I was just kind of like, I'd get and play with these bands, and they were. I mean, I was like the hired gun always. Like I was what everybody calls now a session musician.
Yes.
So I was always the hired gun. And I was, I would get into the bands, and I'd see the act, the guys that were part of the band, and I'd kind of go, well, you're really good at what you do, but you're not great musicians. They became really good at what they did, but I was disappointed that they weren't better musicians. And
Right.
and one of the things that I was mostly disappointed with is that you get on stage and you play the same thing every night.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit looser than that, like, and this is the beauty of what I do now is that when I play a cover, I learn the cover, I learn the song, but then there's no keyboard player in the band, so I've got to make up my own bits,
Right.
and then I can improvise and screw around with the ideas. So they weren't, I mean, for example, I played with Bo Diddley. We did a tour with Bo Diddley,
Right.
and he couldn't tune his guitar. He could not tune his guitar, and it was tuned to a chord. So I had to tune it for him every gig. I mean, as far as playing dunk 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 dunk, he was a master.
Right.
But that was it. If you go anywhere else, he's going, get me out of here. Tune my guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I really loved working with Mark Hunter. Mark was a great guy. He just was a great guy. Just a fantastic guy, and he was funny as. I remember once after a gig in Adelaide, some of the guys went out for a pizza, and by this time it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We're going back home, and we're at the hotel, and we're at the lift. I still remember the whole situation like it was yesterday, and Mark's coming out of the lift as we're getting in. He says, "Come on, Pete, let's go and fucking paint the town." And I said, "Oh, mate, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I've just had pizza. I'm going to bed." He said, "Don't quit now, Pete. You're almost human." So he was funny, and he was just a great dude. I mean, people like did I say that name? I didn't say that name.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
lips
right.
didn't move
Well,
and-
like he was just a fucking idiot. Can I swear? Can I say that?
Yeah, we'll put
I'm
an
sorry.
E tag on the thing. We'll be fine.
I'm sorry. It was, like some people, I didn't say who,
Yeah.
some people would value the way the gig went by the amount of cocaine they put up their nose.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that was just stupidity. And each night it was kind of like the unreality. You don't know what you're going to get after you come off stage. You could have had a great gig, and if there was not enough cocaine in that person's nose, everybody was to blame.
Right.
So the unreality of it all was all a bit silly, but you're getting paid really good money, so you just go through it. You know? And I can feel their pain, those guys, because every night they play the same 12 songs,
Yeah.
right? They have 12 pieces of music that they play every night.
Yeah.
So they're not really, see, I'm a different sort of musician. I like
Yeah.
to develop as a player, I like to I like to delve into other areas. So, as much as it was great fun, well, Margaret Ehrlich was really, really great fun because it was funky. It wasn't just a rock band,
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
funk band. But yeah, they've all been great. They've all been great. Rick Price was amazing, but
Yeah.
Dragon was probably my favourite, and I did that for like 6.5 years. So
That's great.
really good fun.
That would have been beautiful. I think
Yeah.
it gets. I mean, certainly, the constant criticism that you get being in covers bands is people going, "Oh, are you a musician or are you in a cover band?" And it's kind of like, especially when you do covers and originals as well. Like, I've got an originals project that I work on, and there's this attitude of, well, no, but you do covers, and it's like, well, yeah, because I want to play music. At the end of the day, what I want to do is play music. If I wanted to make coffee, I would be a barista, but I want to be a musician. So, you can pour my coffee while you tell me about your original act. And I think
Yeah,
the
that's
thing
right.
about that, you've got the grounding that you spoke about that you get in covers, where your
Only.
adaptability, you have to learn all of these different styles and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of different things come together that way. And you do start to, you can get improvisational with it. And, suddenly, cheesy pop is the most jazz thing you've ever done.
Yeah, that's right. Look, it
Yeah.
cracks me up. It cracks me up that the drummer or the bass player says, "I want to play original music," and they get into somebody else's band who's written the songs. It's like- the other one that cracks me up is there's one guy, I won't say who it is, but he's fucking down on cover bands and tribute bands, and it's so bad. He's like, I mean, I learnt a long time ago to never respond to any or put comments on any social media. I don't do any of that sort of stuff. But it rings around in my head a lot. But there's one guy, he's they're so down on it, and it should be, pubs should be booking the original, and the pokies are the problem, and this is, and cover bands, and they're the problem, and he plays blues.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Old style blues. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not that original, pal. Like what amazes me is they don't get the disconnect or the connect. It's like, and really, like you're saying, like when you play in a cover band, if you want to be a great musician, the first thing I say is get into a cover band. Play all different styles. And you know what? Whenever I see a cover band, I think they're all great musicians. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas I see an original band, I go, not that great. It's smelly, but it's really interesting. I mean, if you want to make a living too, play covers, and if you want to have a great time, and if you want to get fed at gigs, and if you want to get free, and you want all that, and you want to have a laugh, and if you want to get laid, go and play the cover band.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It is the best thing, and it's been the best thing. That's why I do it now. I still do it. I did original projects, and they were. Man, do you want to buy a box of CDs that are still sitting in my garage?
I mean, yes, obviously, yes. I don't have anything I can play them on, but
That's right. That's right. People are still making CDs.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Anyway,
I've seen that the cassettes are now making a comeback.
Oh, yeah, right.
That one.
Yeah.
That one I don't understand. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll get onto it. I'm sure I'll end up, there'll be some cassettes, but it's not like vinyl. I can understand it is, it's got its unique
It's a thing.
quirks.
Yeah, but it's never going to come back. And there's no such physical stuff is just gone. And it amazes me that people still make physical. It's great to give to your mum. You know what I mean? Mum, I made a CD.
Yeah.
You've got a CD, darling. What? Oh, professional. You've got a CD. But no, you've got it's another world, and I love this world as much as I was thinking about it today. I was thinking about '80s, and I was going, well, what was I doing? And I was playing gigs and doing a lot of stuff at King's Cross. I was doing tons and tons of gigs up there.
Yeah.
I said, but the memories are kind of been assimilated, and now I'm just into the next thing. And I think that's the way I've always functioned. Is I don't kind of hold on to the memories and wish I was back there. I wish, some people go, I wish they still made CDs, or I wish they still made vinyl. I wish I still had my record player. My partner's like that. She still likes the horse and cart. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, get me out of that world. Give me buttons to press that takes me there straight away, please. Actually, I want to get to the stage where I can go, there it is.
Yeah.
One day. I don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime, but
Well, I'm gonna.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The '80s was an amazing time because that was when technology was hitting.
Yeah.
From cassette. I remember getting the first, multi-track cassette deck, 4-track, and being able to record on it and stuff. And it was far out. What a trip this is. And, being able to do recordings at home with a telephone book as your snare drum and things,
Yeah.
So, but it was an amazing time, and the haircuts were cracker.
Oh,
I'm actually developing one again, from COVID. That's the COVID cut. I'm going for the 80s.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's coming along nicely. I'm
I'm going to end up at gigs, and people are going to say, oh, you've still got the COVID cut. I'm going to say, I invented it.
Yeah. I am the COVID cut.
I am the COVID cut.
Now, I am going to ask you to cast your memory back now, because obviously we do like to cover some categories here as we have a chat. And the first category I'm going to try and tick off with you here, Peter, is could you please tell the people at home your favorite 80s song?
Oh, gee, this is so hard.
I mean,
I did write it. It's really hard. I don't really have one,
Yeah.
What did I write back to you? I can't remember.
I'll tell you what you wrote back to me.
What did I write?
Can't think of one. Give me time on this.
All right, I'll tell you what I really liked at the time. I mean, God, there's so many. It's really hard to put one on. I really liked She Blinded Me with Science.
It's a great song. That's a great choice.
Which led me into a search to see what Thomas Dolby was all about. And I love Thomas Dolby. I still to this day. And he came to Sydney a couple of years ago. When I say a couple of years ago, probably 10 years ago.
Right.
And that's what happens when you get older. Everything gets... So a couple of years ago, and it was just him. And I thought, this is going to be boring as batshit. It was the most amazing concert I've ever seen in my life. Really? Live looping back then and doing all that sort of thing. He was incredible. So he was a freak. I really liked him, and he understood pop music, but he had great harmonic knowledge.
Yeah.
And he had great technical knowledge too. So I really liked what he did. So if there's my answer, She Blinded Me with Science.
It's a fine answer, and I mean, look, it's not permanent here. I mean, we do insist that what you have locked in as your favorite 80s song is going to be included. It's going to be etched on your tombstone, but it's not. It's not. It's not permanent. It's not going to follow you around for the rest of your life. You're not going to have
Peter
people at gigs
Northcote
going, oh, blinded me with science.
Peter Northcote died with Fernando.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right. I think you'll be all right.
Okay.
That is a great song. It's an interesting thing with Blinding Me with Science because, as you say, his sort of knowledge of harmonics and things like that. Melodically, it's not a simple song. Like it is, but it's also not. Like orally, you're not going, that's a nice little. It's a really interesting.
Yeah, jumping intervals and all. Blinded me with science.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. I think that's what I liked about it. And the other thing, it was comedy too. It had a little bit of humor. And so I still am a big Frank Zappa fan. So so I like all that sort of stuff. But it was a great pop song at the same time.
Yeah. It's it's an odd one that it has sort of stood the test of time. Like it didn't disappear in the way that a lot of songs from the 80s did. It's carried on, and it's so hard to pinpoint what is so good about it. What makes that stand out as a song that we're still listening to it today.
Well, look, here's another one. I mean, I know I've only got one shot, but I'm giving you another one as well. Video Killed the Radio Star. Yeah. The Buggles. And you know what's so ironic about that is that I bought that album not on that song. I bought that album because of the producer, and who the musicians were. Yeah. And the album was amazing. Yeah. And that was the pop song off it. But when you get into that pop song, it's incredible. And they ended up joining forces with my favorite band of the 70s, which was Yes.
Which,
right?
I mean, we may as well launch straight into then your favorite 80s album.
Now, is it? I keep calling it 90210, but it's nine. What's the number of it? 92510.
90125, I believe it is.
That's it. That's it. Well, that was a sort of a standout because they'd come from the prog rock world of Close to the Edge and Relayer. And to give you an example, my brother was listening to all of that stuff in the 70s, and I kind of didn't like it at first, and then I kind of heard it more often, and it grew on me. You know how music grows on you, and then you start to understand it, and then you get into it, and then you go, I love it, and then you don't listen to it, and you come back to it, and it's like, I love that again,
Yeah.
And I think I was doing that with Yes, and then I bought in the late 80s or late 70s, I bought an album called Relayer, and I bought it, hated it. In those days, I used to buy them down at Ashwood's, down at the second-hand record store down in Pitt Street. And I bought it, took it home, and hated it, took it back, swapped it for something else. Then I got more into other Yes stuff, and I thought, well, I've got to give it a go. Bought another one, still didn't like it, kept it. Then eventually played it to death, and it became my favourite album to the point where I had to go back to Ashwood's and get another one, So then when that disbanded and they got the guys from the Buggles involved and they did that album, it was like, wow. No, then they did a whole bunch of things, but that was incredible, So yeah, they were great songs, great production, great music. Yes, and they still are one of my favorite. Now I kind of lost them after a little bit after that. I think Drama was the last album that I got into, and then everything else kind of became more of the same, and they kind of lost it. But the Yes stuff. See, I was a bit more on the fringe of things, rather than the pop. I remember growing up and my mate's daughter, my mate's sister had an ABBA fetish, and she just loved them. And we were listening to like Frank Zappa and Miles Davis and, all these fusion guys, Stanley Clarke and Aldi Meola and all these fusion guys and heavier stuff. And we would listen to her stuff in her room going, what's this crap? And what's really interesting is now my ears gravitate towards ABBA than prog rock or any fusion.
Right.
And I of course, what masterpieces of songwriting those guys were. And, and I think it becomes, it's too popular for me. I want to be on the fringe all the time,
Yeah.
But when you get into it, it's amazing music,
Yeah.
And again, like you say, it stands up today. Still stands up today.
Yeah. So I did want to ask you about, were you much of a fan? Because I didn't realize that 90125 was as controversial as it was.
Yeah.
And in fact, looking at reviews on it today, the Yes fans give it no time.
Divided. Yeah.
Yeah.
Divided.
Which
well, they were the 70s fans. They were the 70s fans because it was those guys would sit in a room for months and months at a time to do one track. And that would be a whole side of an album. Like most of their albums, from Close to the Edge on, were only 3 tracks.
Yeah.
One album, one side, and then 2 tracks for the other side.
Yeah.
So that was all the fusion, and that was you trip out to that stuff because it's amazing playing and amazing writing, and they could even play it live, which was quite interesting. There were bands like Rush. I never got into Rush, but there were those sort of bands that did that sort of thing back then.
Yeah.
Whereas when 90210, I call it 90210, when that came out, it was more pop orientated and more produced rock, And I remember telling who was it? A fabulous drummer in Melbourne, John Watson.
Right.
I said, do you like? He played with Boys Light Up and all those. He's played with everybody.
Yeah.
I said, do you like Yes? And he said, yes. Yeah, they do the rhythm tracks of doom, and then they get the chicken in to sing. But yeah, it was more pop. It was more pop orientated, that album, and that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
I think because I've been playing in cover bands and doing it, and I've been through all the fusion style of things and the stuff. Now I find it really hard to listen to fusion. It just all sounds the same to me. You know,
Right.
I find it hard to listen to um, the Spotify top 50. I do it occasionally. I go there
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
have a listen. I go, there's no songs.
Yeah.
There's no songs. There's no tunes. And just what's worse, I'm rambling on at the moment, mate. I don't normally ramble this much, but I'm rambling on. When I was younger, I said to my mum, I'm going to keep up with modern music. I just want to keep up with modern music. I'm not going to go, oh, this is where I like it, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stay there. I'm going to listen to modern stuff all the time, but I'm really struggling with today's music.
It is hard.
Really. Are you
It is
too?
hard. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if you can find, I think what's happened is that music has diversified so much because of the streaming services. You know, you're not kind of limited to what you can find at the record shop, or you're not limited to what you can hear on the radio. And
Yeah.
so you need to, you kind of find your niche. Obviously, I'm heavily 80s influenced, and so I love the whole synthwave movement that's going on. And that's an amazing sort of subgenre there. But then you've got bands that have they've kind of got a toe in that world, like like the 1975 and Vampire Weekend and stuff like that. You're not really going to hear those songs in the top 50,
No.
but if you can find them, there's some amazing music out there. But you've got to know where, fortunately, we do have a sort of system set up with Spotify playlists and things like that, where you can, if you like that, you can find the community and they'll get you those other songs. But to be honest with you, the whole discovery of synthwave in particular was somebody had done a post saying, is there any music as good as there was in the 80s? And somebody went, have a listen to the Midnight. And so I actually went, oh, I'll have a listen to that. And yeah, it opened up a whole world. But again, that's rehashing an old sound with a slightly modern twist. But I think, the current top 40, top 100 is foreign.
Let's just say it. Shit.
There we go. That was the word.
There you go. It's shit. I know, like people kind of bark up against me on some people bark up against me and say it's the best, but you didn't go for the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
When we had great musicians playing great music and coming up with great songs, the whole thing was about the song,
Yeah.
And now it's a bit like, I can't sing like and fly to the moon. Like, and then a lot of the hip hop stuff is loops that I was playing around with in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just we've created a beat. Well, so friggin' what?
Yeah. Yeah.
A beat. I can download them for nothing.
Hang on. You play that beat. There we go. Hit song.
That's it. You're out. But you'll need 10 people to write it with you.
Yeah.
That's what's hilarious. We do a quiz, as I said, we do a quiz here on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturday nights with the Twitch show, and we have a pop music quiz, and it comes in categories: 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, and you can pick a category, and within that you can go to lyrics or you can go to songs and artists, and sometimes somebody picks the 2000s or even the 90s.
Yeah.
And you'll see, if you go to the 70s or 80s, it's one writer, one writer, right? And you go to 70s, there's like 5 names who wrote this song.
Yeah.
And names I've never heard of before and never will hear of again.
Yeah.
Dr. J Zazzy with Pina Colada, and Hype Train. It's just...
Yeah. Are these their birth names?
That's right. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm
Let's
Pina.
call her Letitia.
Just to venture back into territory. I also didn't realize it wasn't supposed to be a Yes album.
Is that right? So you know more about it than I do.
There you go. It was it was they had done they basically wanted to start a splinter group. Three of them, none of the names of which I remember. And it was called Cinema.
That's
which was, of course,
right.
one of the tracks. Yeah. And the designer of the cover started work on that cover. And if you have a look at the cover for Yes, for 90125, it's a Y. And he said it was actually, when he designed it, it was a C for cinema, and it didn't have the tail. So he just knocked it.
Right?
Yeah.
There you go. See, world of information. Oh, that's great. That's great information. Now I've got that. I can use that.
There you can throw it
There
out.
you
Yeah.
go.
And apparently,
Wow.
yeah. So they got the original singer came back on to do some songs with them. At which point the record label said, "Well, you should do this album as Yes," and they were all against it because they were like, "This is not a Yes album. We're going in a new direction."
Yeah.
But I think it's still, you can still hear Yes all the way through it, but it's beautifully pop. It's incredible to see this. It's you think of the reaction to Bob Dylan going electric, and you think that's the only time people have gone that vitriolic. But no, when Yes decided to go a little electro pop, they copped it, and they're still copying it.
Yeah, they're still copying. I guess that's what happens. It's I mean, like the Rolling Stones haven't copped it because they've remained the same all the way. And that's who they are, and that's what they do. But you're going to cop it if you're going to change members. Because the members, in each band, somebody likes one person more. And if they split, they're going to go over that side, and they're going to say, "Well, you left him. Piss off," So there's all that politics that goes on too. I guess people are funny, it's their artist.
Yeah.
It's my band,
Yeah. Well,
that's great information to know. Though I like the idea of the Y and the C.
It's kind of crazy. Album was almost called, what was it? 808 something. It was
another number.
Yeah. So apparently, the title of the album is the order code for the album.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
and they
right.
couldn't. They had this order code in the US, but they couldn't get it worldwide. It wasn't. Yeah, that order code wasn't available worldwide, so they had to get a worldwide order code, which was 90125.
Isn't that amazing?
There you go.
You're a wealth of information, Jason. I've always said that about you.
Thank you, Peter. Do you know how long I've had that information?
No.
Oh, about 10 minutes before I jumped on with you.
Jeez, I could have done that.
Okay, let's move on, shall we, to your... I really want to jump into this one because this I find fascinating. Let's jump in. Peter Northcote, please tell us your favorite 1980s movie.
God, did I give you an answer on this before?
Did give me an answer to this one?
Oh, God, I should have had this prepared. This is... What did I say?
It was animated. Came out in 1980.
Oh, of course. The Missing Link.
The Missing Link.
Now, oh, my God. So it was the beginning of Pixar.
Right.
That's where it really came from. That was the beginning of it. And it was a story of this cave boy, that got rejected at birth.
Yes.
And he goes on this travels and meets all these pterodactyls, and all this weird stuff happens to him. It's very acid trippy, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that you look at first. Because in those days you'd go to the video store, right? And I'd always see it there, and I go, "Oh, it looks a bit wacky," have a joint and sit down and watch that. I don't take drugs anymore. I haven't taken drugs for decades. Okay. But in those days, you'd have a joint and you'd sit down and watch it. It was really, really bent. Really bent. And then I guess after a while, I'd look at it a couple of times and just go, "Wow, this is monumental stuff," and all the hidden messages in it, and etc. Of course, if you're stoned, you're going to find more messages than you should find in it. Yes. But it was an incredible movie, and it's really hard to find now. You can't find the whole movie. It might be on YouTube somewhere, but Yeah, there are shorts of it
Yeah.
available. But if you can ever get a hold of it, it's the most amazing thing. And they've got all these little creatures that he meets all the way. And his name is O. And it's a bizarre thing, but I really loved it. It was great animation. But it was the beginning of the Pixar system, you know.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'd never heard of the film before,
Yeah,
and so yeah, you sent me through a trailer for it,
yeah.
and I was like, this is weird. So it's a French film. It was a French film, and then they did this English dub of it. You can't find that. It was remade. It wasn't remade. It was sort of re-edited a few years later, and an American dub of it was released called BC Rock, which you
BC
can
Rock.
find. Yeah, BC
Is
Rock
that
you can
right?
find on YouTube. So I was
Oh,
watching a
you're
little
killing
bit of
me
that.
now.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
okay. BC Rock.
Yeah,
Just going to write this down.
write it down. Yeah.
You are a world of information. I'm so glad you do. BC Rock.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fascinating. It's so both I believe both the English version and then the American redub have Christopher Guest does one of the voices.
That's
and Bill Murray, I believe, is uncredited, but he's the voice of the dragon. Which
There you go.
I guess it's come out in 1980. So Bill Murray in 1980s. I mean, he would have been pretty well known for Saturday Night Live there. So, but yeah, so absolute. I can imagine having a joint and watching it. Yeah, two cavemen child. His name's O and his brother's name is R.
You got it.
Yeah,
You got it.
but
And the no lobes. There was the no lobe. There's all these things. You know, I gave it to a mate of mine to have a look at, and every time he sees me, he talks about the no lobes. You know, we are the no lobes sorts of. And they have these little songs that they do and all that. It's just a really clever piece of work. It really is.
right. I'd love to actually. You should have a look at BC Rock and see how that holds up. There's a lot more music. I was looking at the soundtrack for BC Rock, and it looks like a pretty impressive soundtrack. And an interesting thing is the music consultants on that that version are Bob and Harvey Weinstein.
Is that right?
Pre Miramax.
Right.
Yeah.
Far out. That's great information.
Yeah, it's a crazy little film.
Yeah, a little hidden thing that nobody knows about.
Yeah, that you know has so much in it. Really fascinating.
That's
film,
good.
yeah.
That's good. I'm glad you got all that info because it is worthwhile looking into because it is such a great film. And it's there's so many. Again, like you say, what's your favorite film? There were so many films back then that I loved. You know, and I had this amazing system because in where I lived in Earlwood. I started renting a house in Earlwood in 1980 and left there in 95. But I had a room downstairs that was a lounge room. I had 2 lounge rooms, had 5 bedrooms, and this one lounge room was just a cinema. And I had the biggest stereo and the hugest 24-inch TV, you know.
Massive.
Massive. And it was that was my space. You know, after working all day, doing sessions and things, I'd come home and the videos were my solace. They were my thing. So I saw a lot of movies, but I guess that's the one that stood out to me when you asked me the question.
Yeah. I mean, I love that that you actually went for something a little more obscure. Though it's really nice to find something new and disappear down a hole with it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I will. I watched, as I say, a little bit of BC Rock. But I'll finish it up.
Well, it's probably very, very dated now with what they've going on. But back then, if you can put your mindset back to 1980, it's pretty good.
I should point out it is. Yeah, if your kids are listening and they're going, I want to watch BC Rock, it's a little racy at points.
That's right. That's right.
So we come to your next category, which is your favorite 80s TV show.
Oh, did I say Seinfeld?
No.
What did I say?
You said Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I thought Seinfeld because I'm watching Seinfeld again.
Right.
I'm
Fabulous.
watching. I'm just back into it again. I'm up to season 5, and it's hilarious. But I'm also into Curb Your Enthusiasm as well at the moment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, Star Trek. Oh God, I cry when I watch that stuff.
Yeah.
It makes me emotional. Yeah, I mean, the first Star Trek was, it created a platform for them to embark on new situations, and it gave them a great grounding of what to do next. But
Yeah.
but Next Generation, oh man, because they were out exploring the universe and really exploring, and they had an empath on board who
Mm.
could just feel things from people, and it was really more like a spiritual journey. That's where they created it, which led to Voyager, which
Mm.
was kind of just after that. So I really should have put both of them together. But Voyager was amazing because Voyager go out on their maiden voyage, and they get flung 75 years into the universe and to the galaxy. So that's going to take them 75 years to get back. And this is Janeway, the captain. It's the first female captain. She does everything she can. So I'm getting really emotional now. Getting to get her team back, get her crew back, and she makes deals with people along the way that might fling them 10 years closer. And they're
Right.
nasty deals, but she's doing it all for the crew. Oh God, I'm melting. No, it is. It's really beautiful stuff. And Next Generation was incredible. I mean, the funniest thing about it was the suits were always too tight, so they were always doing this. They'd get up and they'd do this. If you watch it, you'll notice it now. But it's the first thing they do. They get up and they go. So the suits were a bit weird, but great stuff. And they just had enough special effects to make it look good. And the first series with Shatner was terrible, but it was the 60s or 70s, whatever it was. But when Next Generation and Voyager came along, they had a little bit more technology to play with, and they used it really well for the budgets that they had. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had also refined the concept of what it was. I think, when they were making the original series, it was, but we're making sci-fi here. It's, but this notion of Star Trek being a peaceful mission and the Enterprise, trying to explore new worlds and stuff like that. And but yeah, as you say, the sort of spirituality of it, they really realized that vision with the Next Generation. I think they managed to free themselves of the sort of campiness of the 60s show.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And that's what was beautiful about it. It developed the original ideas, the tricorder, the prime directive, where you do not screw with time. You cannot screw with it. That's it. And people would, but you're just not supposed to do it. And the whole spirituality is probably not the right word to use, but it was a real spiritual thing for me, and the human aspect of it really would hit my heart. The human aspect of people trying to do the right thing in the universe, with people that are screwing it up or whatever, and they're just trying to do the right thing. And then it was just beautiful. I loved every bit of it, and I've watched them. I'm actually, I'm actually at the moment, so I love a little sci-fi. I wasn't so much into Star Wars. It was, there's Trekkies or there's Star Wars. I was a Trekkie by far. And I'm actually now on the final season of Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
Now, if you've never seen that, do some, you're the sort of guy that will go and do some research on it. It's probably the most wanted or liked series in the history of time.
Right.
Now, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And I'm on it for the third time.
Right.
And I just watch it over and over again. It's really, really amazing stuff. But I like all that sci-fi stuff. That's what's...
Sorry, do you mean original series or the recent sort of... Well,
no, the recent, the one that started around about 2004, I think it was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, the original stuff was very... You could flick that away. But there's the latest series. I mean, you can watch the first series of it, and not know what it was all about.
Right.
It just takes you a while to kind of get into what's going. It starts off with. I mean, we're diverting, but it starts off with them having to jump in space every 32 seconds, 32 minutes.
Right.
Because the Cylons are after them, and they figure out where they are, and then they jump to another place, and you're going, what's going on here? Anyway, it's a long story. The Cylons believe in one God,
Right.
and the humans believe in gods.
Right. Right.
Anyway,
There you go.
that's when we get into the 2000s.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just, going back to Next Generation, let's just acknowledge the story element. I don't know who came up with it, but they probably took the week off after that, of the holodeck, to just go, listen, we're going to create this thing. So if we want to tell a story set in the 50s, they just go to the holodeck, and it's the 50s.
They would go on holidays at the holodeck, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Just go to this beach with, you know, palm trees and pina coladas, and that was their holiday.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Just a perfect little storytelling device.
Yeah.
Great show. So your favorite 80s show, and it came out in 87, only ran for 7 seasons, which surprised me. I guess it felt longer because you had Voyager, and you also had Deep Space Nine spinning off from that. So it felt like there was something constantly going. And I mean, even 7 seasons is still 170 something.
Well,
episodes.
see, you know, in those days, we do seasons now that are 6 or 10 or 12 episodes.
Yeah.
They were doing 20 and 24 episodes in some of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the shorter one, I think most of them were 26 episodes. Was the sort of standard. That's crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Great choice. Great choice. Now I won't. Oh, sorry, man, I've just punched my mic. I won't keep you for too much longer.
That's fine.
Go into your final category, which is the ambiguous one, your favorite 80s memory / thing / whatever.
Did I write, let me think about it?
No. You did give me an answer for this one.
What did I say?
You've already touched on it actually, but what you were talking about was all the gigs you were doing in King's Cross and stuff like that. And I mean, I think if you don't mind talking about that, I'd certainly love to hear a little bit more about what the scene was like back then, because we certainly, you know, hear about the good old days when you go on the road now. So if you can, that was what you had down was.
That's right. Look, it was an amazing time. It was an incredible time. And of course I was young, so I was really keen to keep doing it. Yeah. So I would, you know, first of all, you would go and do a gig somewhere, whether that be, you know, a club gig or a band gig that starts at, you know, 8 or 9 o'clock, and you'd go till 11 or 12. And then you would go into the Cross and start a gig at 1 o'clock in the morning. Right. And there were venues all around the Cross back then. There was the 2 big ones were around midnight and the All Nations Club. And they would have bands from 5 o'clock in the afternoon all the way up until 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes. So you would get there at 1 o'clock and do first, and you'd sometimes get asked to do the second one as well. So you would constantly be leaving at daylight.
Right.
Always great bands, and you would do that any day of the week. It wasn't just weekends. You could do 2 gigs a night anywhere in the Cross easily if your times matched up. And they were always great venues. I met a lot of amazing musicians. I met, you know, all the Tommy Emmanuels and all those guys, you know, would be down there doing those gigs at the same time. The Basement, the original Basement. Right. And as it got on the one just up the road, they were just open all night. You know, we had this amazing live scene, and it was open for all musicians to go down there, and after their gigs, there'd be somewhere to go and somewhere to connect with people that you know or you would meet, and then you would create other bands, and then you would talk, and then you'd get into and then the gigs would just flow from just meeting people. And there wasn't so much oh, that's where you go to network, man. It wasn't that at all.
Yeah.
It was just a great place to go after a gig. And you could park in the street back then, you know? So it was fine. You could park outside the venue and it was really cool. And you could have your gear out in the car and you wouldn't be worried about it because there'd be people around all the time outside the venue. King's Cross, you'd always find a park outside. So there was, the All Nations Club was an amazing venue. It really was. And they focused mainly on funk and soul music. But there was occasional rock band in there as well. And so you would have these audiences come and go, you know, and then if there was somewhere else they wanted to go, they'd just walk up the road to the Round Midnight venue, or they'd go up to the Paradise Club, or they'd go to, you know, at the end of the night, you'd all go up to the Bourbon and Beefsteak where the club band was, you know.
Right.
And so many times I'd do 3 gigs a night up there, you know.
Right.
And it was great fun, great players, and, you know, just great fun. I mean, I think the funny things that I think of now is, because I used to be a smoker, and the first thing you would do is go into the venue, put your gear on the stage, set up your gear, grab an ashtray off a table and put it on top of your amp. Right? That was what you did. Like, I couldn't even consider doing that nowadays, but that's what you used to do. You know.
Yeah.
Interesting times. Interesting times. Yeah.
Because I think you said in the email that, yeah, you would play up to 10, often more gigs a week.
Yeah. Well, in '86, I got a scholarship to go to the conservatorium to do a diploma in jazz.
Right.
What? What the? I've got a paper. I can play jazz. There it is. You know. So it's kind of a silly thing, but it was a really great networking thing and being able to play with people all day and every day. Anyway, I did 1 year of that, and then I got the gig with Richard Clapton. I was doing already, you know, gigging every night. So there was a stage where I was doing 10 gigs a week. So I deferred.
Right.
And never went back. Never went back because I just ended up gigging and gigging and gigging. So I was doing what I wanted to do, you know. And it was easy to do 10 gigs a week, you know.
That's incredible. And
amazing time.
Sort of spread across, or was it fairly centralized? You know, could you?
No, it was all over the place. Like there were venues up here at Darlinghurst. There were a lot of gay venues we used to play in.
Right.
In those days, and they were kind of underground places that you know would rarely even know about unless you were gay or you were a musician, you know, entertaining. There were places at Cogra, out west there, down at Cronulla. Okay. There were those little venues, you know, these suburban venues that were hidden away, but a lot at the Cross, and a couple in Paddington. I don't, again, like I've assimilated and they've all gone. Don't ask me the names of them, but I do remember the Cross vividly. That's what we used to do.
Yeah,
you know, I remember the car I had. You know, the Mitsubishi Sigma. We used to call it the Smegma.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So you know, it was an amazing time, Jason. It really was. I mean, you know, I know people say that there's no venues and there's no work. I don't subscribe to that. I reckon there's plenty out there if you want to do it. And it's really about, you know, I mean, look at you guys. You guys could work anywhere and make a great quid, and you play to massive audiences, you know. And so people are busting to go out. It's just where.
Yeah.
So, you know, and now we've gotten over this COVID thing. You watch it. There's going to be so much coming on. There's going to be so many venues opening up. We have this John Wardle from the I can't remember what it's called. The Live Music Task Force, has put together this this proposal that is now being adopted, that all that area down at the wharf, down at all the way from Circular Quay down to Darling Harbour and beyond, there is going to be a lot of venues there. And they're not going to be shut down by noise complaints. So there's going to be a lot of work coming out of that. And it's going to be a nighttime economy. So late nights are coming back because not everybody works 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this is what amazes me about Australia, and it always has, is that, you know, the banks open at 9 or 10 and close at 4, yet people work from 9 to 5. The shops do the same thing. It's like, no, you go to Japan and it's the most amazing place. I don't know if you've ever been there.
No.
It's incredible. So
On my
they
bucket
have
list.
they have an amazing system whereby the venues start at 6 o'clock. So, and they might have 3 bands on,
Right.
and it might only go till 10 o'clock. But the restaurants and the shops are open until midnight at least, right? So you finish work at 5 or 6 o'clock, you go out and see your favorite band, and you pay your cover for that time. It's not about drinking. There's a hole in the wall if you want to buy a drink, but that's as far as the drinking is concerned. It's about bands. It's
Yeah.
about music. And so it's not uncommon for at 9 o'clock, schoolgirls in their school uniform to walk in to see their favorite band and then go home at 10 o'clock.
Right.
Right. Now, the other thing is if you finish work, you go and see your band. You might go 6 to 7 or whatever, or 7 to 8, then go out to dinner at one of the pubs. Right. And so it's really, really a great time. And there's shopping all night. I don't know why we haven't done that here. We're dopey. We're dopey. You know? And I think that this new nighttime economy is going to open it up for a lot more music. Now, the problem is that oh God, the problem is that people that are gig fit are my age, and I market to 40 plus now, right?
Right.
I don't know how old you are. You must be what, 25?
Yeah. Let's say that.
But I market to 40 plus because they're gig fit. They know what it's like to go out to a venue, and they're happy to spend money, and they love and they dance and they do all that sort of thing. Whereas I don't know whether the society of today are hip to going out and partying like that. They're more interested in a doof band or a doof DJ, and that's entertainment for them. So I think it's going to all change a lot very, very soon, and I'm really looking forward to it, having that nighttime economy, because I live in the city. I can just walk down there,
Right. Yeah. Which is heavenly.
Heavenly, yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to be really good. I'm positive about it. So getting back to it, yes, there were lots of gigs back then, but I think there's going to be a lot more gigs now.
Which would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's probably a great place to leave it. Peter, thank you so very much for sitting down and talking with me.
What a joy! What a joy you are! What a joy you are to speak to, and your research has been amazing. It's better than mine. I didn't even look at the email again.
Why would you? Why would you? You've got me.
When I've got somebody like you here, why would I?
You got me to tell you what your memories are. So, Peter, we can find you on Twitch most of the time.
Yes, you can. That's Peter Northcote, one word. If you just go to Twitch and it's Peter Northcote, one word. We're streaming. What's today? Thursday. We're streaming Thursdays, Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturday nights. And I also do a Wednesday lunchtime stream, Australian Sydney time.
Beautiful.
So I do that. I have my Facebook account, which is kind of where a lot of information goes up. But yeah, you can contact me anywhere.
Excellent. And we think your Thursday Twitch will probably stop after the 9th of December when you start gigging again.
But we are going to stream live from there as well.
From the venue.
Yeah.
Perfect. What was the venue again?
The Rambling Rascal.
Rambling Rascal.
Corner of Park and Elizabeth Streets.
All right.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Peter Northcote, and I call you Northcote. It's probably Northcote. I never told you this. I learned photography. I did work experience photography with a man in Perth called Peter Northcote. Which
is that right? There's another one.
There is another one.
Far out. Isn't that amazing? There you go.
When I first moved here, everybody was like, "Oh, you've got to go and see Peter Northcote." I'm like, he taught me how to take photos. What are you talking about?
That's great.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, mate, and I can't wait to see you out on the road again. Well, I was just singing your praises.
Mate, thank you. I've really had a good time, Jason. Thank you so much. It's been really good.
Thank you, Peter.
You're a rocket, man. You're great. I really like your interviewing style, and I really like what you're doing. And good luck with all your never-ending 80s band. What a success story that is.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. We'll have to get you back on again when you can change all of your decisions, and I'll tell you what your favorite song is next time.
You're on.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, mate. I will hopefully we'll see you at a gig or something.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Beautiful.
See you again.
Thanks, Peter.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, mate. So that was my conversation with Peter Northcote. I want to thank him very much for joining me on the podcast. If you have any questions, or maybe you want to send us your own favourite 80s song, favourite 80s album, favourite 80s TV show, favourite 80s movie, and something from the 80s you think could use some more attention, just send us an email at any80spodcast@gmail.com. I'm J.C.Hollywood, and I'll see you next time. This episode of the Never Ending 80s podcast is brought to you by Sleishman Drum Co. Pioneering sound innovation since 1971, the Sleishman Drum Company are the inventors of the modern-day twin double bass pedal, a revolutionary product making life easier for drummers everywhere. They also pioneered the free-floating acoustic drum. Now, if like me, you have no idea what that means, it's a drum tuning system that doesn't bolt onto the drum's shell, i.e. the wooden bit that makes the drum sound good. This results in a great-sounding drum with more tone than ever before. Created in Australia and still manufactured in Australia, Sleishman drums are exported around the globe to some of the world's best drummers, including Queen's own Roger Taylor. They're even the kit of choice for the never-ending 80s own Davey Rocket. So if you are in the market for a new kit, make sure it's a Sleishman.